Hello, everybody. We are here for the third day of Modern Workplace Conference Paris 2021. And it's an absolute pleasure to introduce the last keynote of this session, of this event. This keynote will be about dispelling the myth of work-life balance by Debbie Ireland. And it's really a great thing to be able to join Debbie, because Debbie is just on the other side of the planet. So for those in Europe, it's 9 a.m. for us, and for Debbie, it's 9 p.m. So that's really great. We can organize that in this period, especially, and with the magic of Teams and Teams live meeting, especially for the techies guy. Debbie, for those who don't know Debbie yet, Debbie is organizing awesome community event in Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia as well. And I met her in Australia a few years ago. But nowadays, obviously, we are remote. And she also leading the Share the Point company. So once again, let's go with the Debbie keynote. So thank you for joining, Debbie, and the stage is yours.
Welcome and bonjour to all of you, and for me, I guess it's bonsoir. So excited to be here and very blessed to be living in New Zealand, where we don't have any lockdown and are able to live our lives normally. So I feel for everyone else and hope everyone's doing fine over there. But let's get started. So, work-life balance. My ass. This is actually the title of a book I've just written, but would anyone agree? I'm sure I have not yet met anyone who has reached the nirvana of work-life balance. And the main question I seem to be having, or discussions that I seem to be having of late with people, is doesn't it seem as if we're working more hours? Has the number of hours that you're working since lockdown or since COVID and the pandemic, has it increased? And more so, which might take a little bit of a courage for you to answer this question, but how many of you think that COVID has had an impact on your well-being? It could be that you're exhausted, you can't switch off, you're expected to over-deliver, or you simply have Zoom or Teams fatigue. I don't think you're alone, and these stats actually came from the Ignite conference. I don't know if any of you watched Satya Nadella's keynote, but he talked about how the workday length has increased. These statistics are, well, it was 17% in Japan, 25% in the USA, and 45% in Australia. I did look for some from New Zealand and from France, and unfortunately I couldn't find any, but I would tend to think that we would be closer to the same percentage as Australia, meaning that our workday has increased by 45%, and that's a massive amount. And alongside that, as part of this survey and this research that they did, they said that a third of workers say that their well-being is being negatively impacted, and 30% say the pandemic has increased burnout. So it's a real problem. And while work-life balance has been something that everyone's been striving for many, many years, it's becoming more and more prevalent and more necessary to actually address. So work-life balance implies that there is a time where work stops and then where life magically starts. That it's equally proportioned, that there's 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play. And that implies that they're separate to one another, so they're disconnected. And that therefore implies that balance is possible. When we focus on work-life balance in terms of time, each segment is competing for the other. Family demands less work time, work demands less family time, and it always feels like we're giving something up in order to satisfy the other demand. And there's never enough time. introduced digital technologies, mobile, remote working, flexi time, constant notifications from all sorts of social media and all that good stuff. And where does that balance go? And when does the clock actually turn off? We hear about this work-life balance so much that we assume it's the answer and what we should be striving for. But in fact, it's actually impossible. So today, I'm going to dispel 3 myths. I actually started my own self-development journey at about the age of 11, and I've dedicated so much time to reading and researching ever since. It's been probably in the last 20 odd years that the focus has been more around work-life balance. And this is simply from my own curiosity on how to get more out of my life, how to set goals, achieve them, how to be constantly improving what I'm doing and being the best that I can, but all the while juggling the numerous other things that life throws at you. So today I want to share what I call 3 alternatives to the myths that I'm going to bust, and I call these my 3 M's of work-life balance. And with these, you can look to remove the guilt of those competing demands that I talked about by putting yourself first and figuring out what's important to you. Get some control over what matters most to you so that you can gain control over that overwhelming feelings of stress that I'm sure most of us have. And also to live with a sense of calm. So come back to the essence of what balance really is. So myth number 1. Let's start with the concept of separation. The idea that work and life could be separated came originally from the days of shift work or factories, when you'd clock in and then you'd leave work at a specific time and you wouldn't consider it until the next time you showed up. So time was the separator. But in reality, work and life cannot be considered as 2 disconnected entities. If we look at life now and with lockdown and ever since, or if you've worked from home for a while, we broach this hybrid way of working. So either where you've got children involved, or I've heard of people carving out an area of their garage or their bedroom just to find some peace so that they can set up their laptop. I have a friend in Auckland who sent me this screenshot of when we were in lockdown, which, as I said, we're so incredibly lucky because it was only for a short time, but they've got an 18-month-old who wasn't taking naps at the time. So they had to have this whiteboard that tracked who had what calls on at what time and who was on child duty. And it was just a nightmare of logistics. And I'm sure you've all got stories about how we're so affected and how we cannot separate these 2 things anymore. The other thing that I seem to get told a lot was that as people got into their own rhythms of home, work, life juggling, then they'd find time for doing things at different times than they normally would. So they'd send emails after hours lots of the time. And for a lot of people, this caused massive stress because they felt compelled to answer the emails whenever they arrived. And rather than leaving it or turning off notifications or anything like that, they felt compelled to actually respond, which, as I said, caused more stress. So for me, I actually thought I was doing okay. I was ticking some boxes in some areas of my life, and I thought my work-life balance was pretty good. And I'm going to go back to a time, it was 2003. And I was living in Auckland, New Zealand's biggest city, and managing a consulting company. So striving to be the best I could at work, climbing the corporate ladder, achieving lots, and in a role that really challenged me. So lots of ticks. It also meant that I was earning well and I could provide for Sophie. That's my daughter there on the right. And she was 3 at the time. And as a single parent, this is and always has been my number 1 priority. But I was driving home from work one night and the reality all of a sudden sunk in. My day consisted of dropping Sophie at 6 a.m. to a preschool care place because it was too early to drop her at preschool. And in the winter, it was cold and it was dark and I felt incredibly guilty. Sophie would have to eat her breakfast in the car on the way there. And I felt like I was always absent and forever rushing. I drove an hour and a half through rush hour traffic, and there was no nice even split of my time, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of social time. I'd leave work and I'd take home the day emotionally, as well as hours of extra work. Technology played a part because there was email after hours. My bosses lived in Australia, so there were different time zones. And by the time I picked up Sophie, it would be dark again. I'd often be late. I'd then go ahead and rush through the dinner and the nightly bath, bed and book routine. And again, just always filled with that guilt and that remorse, and I'd continue to work. And I guess all the time I was taking very little time for me, or for my physical health, and not even recognising that ever-growing habit of the well-deserved glass of wine at the end of the day. And the days just seemed to rinse and repeat. So I realised this just was not the life that I wanted, either for myself or for my daughter. And I was juggling the best I knew how, but it was also really, really clear how much impact one part of my life had on other parts. So every part of my life was intricately connected. Work and life most certainly couldn't be separated. So this brought me to my first M, which is meaning. I needed to find meaning behind what I was doing. And more so, I began to question the purpose. I needed to redefine what was important to me and why. So for me, I needed to strip away the busyness. It wasn't about what I was doing, my job. It wasn't about who I was, the role I was playing, being a business person, a parent, a partner, a friend, a boss, an employee, because I know it's not about the roles we play. You strip away all of those and what do you have? It's about why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? So we need to get very, very clear about what it is we want. Imagine doing a handstand. So this picture, by the way, is of the beach exactly where I live, called Mount Maunganui. And this lady is someone who teaches people actually how to do handstands. In order to do a handstand, you have to have a very strong core in order to get up there in the first place. So think about your core like your meaning. You need to have very strong meaning to do what you want to do. You also need to be able to visualize the end result. So with a handstand, you actually need to believe that you can do it. So interrogate your values and find out what your core meaning is. So how do you identify what's meaningful now? It is proven that meaning drives our performance. So sometimes the easiest way to do it is to actually look at the results that you're getting in your life now in every area, in work, family, relationships, health, spiritual growth. What's important and what is your current meaning that is driving your current results? Do you like the results you're getting? Or are there areas that you can actually change or improve? Another thing that I quite like to do is called an energy audit to see where you're at or where you're most stressed. And again, this is all about awareness, checking in to assess what's what. Give this a go now if you want to, if you've got a pen and paper next to you. So first of all, you just need to identify the key areas in your life to assess. And they could be things like time, energy, health, money, relationships, creativity, or meaning itself. And figure out what works for you. Just come up with a list of what those key words are. And write down next to each of them, how energized or charged do you feel in every area? So 0 being absolutely on empty and 10 being fully fueled. Is there an area that you could make some immediate changes? Or is there one thing you could do right now that would make an adjustment or just move that dial slightly? So try and choose just one action for shifting that dial in just one area and see how that affects your stress levels. And make this a regular check-in. One good point here is that it's not supposed to be a check-in that you're going to look at and go, oh my goodness, my life's disastrous, but more just an assessment, to a snapshot in time to assess where you're at this time. And you'll notice that it removes or reduces the block of energy flow in your brain and allows you to make better choices just by having that assessment. Myth number 2, balance implies success happens in the middle. So balance not only assumes equal time in order to achieve the balance, it implies aiming for the middle. So as you no doubt know, magic, progress, results, success, even excitement doesn't happen in the middle. They happen at the extremes. And in order to achieve extraordinary results and find that passion, you have to go to the extremes and you have to focus on what matters most. And to do this, you have to go out of balance, but that's okay. Let me give you a few examples. Maybe you focus on a huge project at work and it consumes every waking hour. It's all you can think about. You're swallowed up by the thrill of making it all happen. The people that you're working with is all that's your people for that time. And this takes priority and this is what matters most. Or think about if you were to enter into an extreme sports event and every day is centered around the training schedule. It's that extreme where the magic happens. So everything you do is about reaching the next milestone on that training or being able to make the end goal. And for this period, that's what matters most. Or another example, if you've ever experienced the first few weeks of a newborn baby, where that creature relies solely on you and your life is nothing but intense commitment. And that is what matters most. So giving your all is necessary to get the results, but you know it's only for a limited time. So instead for me, after I worked a little bit on finding my purpose and my meaning, I then discovered my matters most, or my second M, and continued to focus on what matters most and going to various extremes. I moved to Tauranga, having grown up on a lifestyle block, when I grew up. That was something I wanted to try and recreate for my daughter. So I bought a 9-acre farmlet and that's what mattered most. I started my own business and for a time, that was what mattered most. Work got a lot of priority. I poured my heart and soul into more and more work and was hugely productive. I was getting extreme results. So if I take it back to the handstand analogy, as with Julia, based on a strong foundation, remember that core and that meaning, she can go to the extremes. However, she does know how far to go before reaching her tipping point. Too much of an extreme or too much time out of balance and you fall over and you reach your tipping point and overstep it. I discovered this when I was on the work extreme. It was totally to the detriment of other areas in my life. Sophie was growing up before my eyes and I felt like I was missing it. I didn't realise how septic the relationship I was in was, which led to legal battles, circumstances beyond my control, and cost literally thousands of dollars. So how do you recognise when you are at that tipping point? For me, it's when my energy levels drop or I lose focus. It can be really simple things. I can get unproductive and start going round and round in circles. It's also evident when I lose connection or evident in the connection or loss of it with family or friends. So it's really good to have some go-tos to bring you back and to allow you to go to another extreme. So think of things you do now that you know relieve stress, that recharge you, like a run after work to clear the head, or making time for a sunrise, or doing something with your children that they want to do, or going back to what your meaning is. So the important thing is to figure out what that tipping point is, and before you actually fall over. I loved this quote by, it was in the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. If you don't prioritise your life, someone else will. And the interesting thing that was written about this is that the word priority came into the English language in the 1400s and it was singular. It meant the very first or prior then, and it stayed singular for 500 years. You could only have one priority. And then in the 1900s, we began to pluralize the term and start talking about priorities, which is illogical. We reasoned that by changing the word, we could bend reality. Somehow that we'd be able to have multiple first things. People in companies routinely try to do that. We always say we'll have priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, whereas priority was really just about one thing. So I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. How many of you are good at putting yourself first? And even more so, how many of you are good at putting yourself first without having any guilt? Part of the guilt is that many people have a problem saying no. And it's like we've developed this culture of saying yes to everything. But every time we say yes, we are actually saying no to something else. And we're actually saying no to things that are potentially more important. If you say yes to the emails after work or working overtime, you're saying no to family time. If you say yes to an early morning meeting, you could be saying no to making it to the gym. So just switch the way you look at it and think about what it is you're saying no to and what it is you're saying yes to. So how do we stop saying yes to everything and only say yes to what's important? Again, I think it comes back to meaning that you're holding and focusing on what matters most. Myth number 3, balance implies that there is some end point, that it's a destination, that it's something we attain or achieve, that it's a destination. But the internet provides literally millions of search results on this work-life balance anomaly and how to achieve it in 10 steps. Learn 20 tips, 5 tricks, 8 strategies, 15 do's and don'ts. It's endless, but it also suggests it's something that we can attain or achieve, that there is an end point. Gary Keller, I don't know if you've read The One Thing, an excellent book, by the way, but he puts it very well when he says, viewed wistfully as a noun, balance is lived practically as a verb. And I think that's so true. It's not a noun, it's actually something we live. The destination is constantly evolving. It's a process, it's ongoing, it's about progress and about change. So my meaning, my goals 15 years ago were so different. Even 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, they changed again. We create new meaning often. So this brings me to the third M. I created new meaning once again for what I wanted. Meaning drives results, remember. For a while, I hit the pause button on doing so much at work. And what mattered most for a while was health. So I tried that extreme. I ran a half marathon, I gave up drinking, I swapped wine time on thirsty Thursdays to casual coffee catch-ups. My life became rounded and everyone around me saw it and how it changed me. I was creating my own magic, which I call my third M. I got to spend quality years with my daughter as she went through her teens and left for university, and this is time you simply can't get back. I remember reading that watching your 6-year-old son play a soccer game is not the same as taking your adult boy to a World Cup match. It is simply time you can't get back. I even eventually manifested the most wonderful man into my life. We design our business around what matters most with our lives, clients, travel, team meetings. My staff all work school hours or ones that fit with their lives. And they make time to attend their kids' events and do things that are, most important to them. One travels around the USA in a camper. Well, that was pre-COVID actually, but anyway, while working, and she's my mum. So instead, think of the magic that you can create. And for me, the magic all sat in one simple question. It was about contentment. rather than striving for the eternal destination or attainment or perfection. It was about being happy with where we are right now. Today I want to share my magic kit, which you'll also find in my book, but I recommend you create your own magic kit. And a few of the things that I have in mind are M, which is for moment or the miracle of the moment. So when you're at work, focus on that and that alone. When you're with your kids, that's what matters most. Focus on that and be present, be in that moment. A is for acceptance, and this is about a change of mindset to being curious, to being accepting of exactly where you are now, and see how your perception changes your outlook. G is for gratitude, and when we think of things that we're thankful for, it alters the chemistry in our brain. So once you focus on even the smallest things that you're grateful for, you'll notice more. And what we focus on grows. I is for intention, and this is not specific or time-based intention. It's not like a goal. It's more about the way you want to feel and what you want to manifest. And C is that word contentment. So rather than striving, it's about being content with where you are right now. So focus on the core, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and even to create your meaning. And this will allow you to focus on what matters most. Myth 1 was work and life can be separated, and I think I've busted that. They're integrated, they're blurred, they're overlapped. Look instead for meaning. Myth 2, go to the extreme to find the results. Focus on what matters most. Out of balance is okay and needed. So make it your matters most. And myth 3, we busted that. Work-life balance is a destination. Instead, enjoy the journey. And this is where you'll find the magic. It is your choice. I want to just play this little video at the end of Julia because she has a strong core. She creates meaning, and in order to go to the extreme and create her own magic, which is pretty cool, something I really wish I could do. I thought that was worth sharing. And that, on that note, merci and thank you. I would love you to connect with me on LinkedIn, and please feel free to ask any questions.
I don't see any question, but thank you very much, Debbie. It was awesome to have such great insights, and I hope we will be able to make some good work-life balance for every of us in the future with your great advice. Thank you very much, and see you in your session and all those sessions that are starting right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.